2, 1.
New calls emerge for Republicans to abandon their party. Tom Perez says the wave of the future is socialism, and Supreme Court talk gets even dumber. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Well, believe it or not, even though it's the day after Independence Day, there's still a lot of news going on. I know everybody's groggy. I know everybody's just getting back to work and everybody's depressed about it. But don't worry. We'll get through it together. First, I have to remind you that this August, I'm taking the Ben Shapiro Show live to audiences in Dallas and Phoenix. You'll be able to see me in person and join in an audience Q&A. Tickets are going fast. We're nearly sold out in Dallas, and we are approaching near sold out in Phoenix. Visit dailywire.com/events to get your seats and additional info. So go check that out, dailywire.com/events. I look forward to seeing you there. It should be a blast. We have all sorts of fun and games planned for you, so check that out. Also, before we begin, I want to remind you that it is time for you to make sure that all of your most precious memories are preserved. Like, this is an actual advertiser that I think is vital to your life. Like, this is actually a vital thing to your life. As you get older, as time goes by, you have all these memories, but most of them are in your garage, and they're moldering in your garage. It's all these old tapes that you had from when you were a kid, and your parents handed down to you, or your grandparents have tapes about your parents. And all these things are just sitting out there doing nothing, and you don't know what to do with them. Well, now you know what to do with them. That's what Legacy Box is for. It's a simple, affordable way to get your recorded moments digitally preserved on DVD or thumb drive. So here's how it works. You load Legacy Box with your old tapes, film, pictures, audio recordings, and then you send it back, and you'll get them back in a couple of weeks on DVD or a convenient thumb drive ready to watch, share, and relive. Legacy Box takes care of every step of the process, and they provide updates at every step of the process as well. We've used it in the Shapiro household. I used it for some of my old family tapes. My parents are using it as well for some of the old reels that they have from their parents. Go check it out. It is amazing. Legacybox.com. When you go to legacybox.com/Ben and enter my code Ben, you get a 40% discount on your order. When you enter that promo code Ben, legacybox.com/Ben, you get a 40% discount on your order. The price is already affordable. This makes it a particularly good deal. Legacybox.com/Ben. That's legacybox.com/Ben. Go check it out right now. It really is a vital thing, and it's going to make your life a lot better. Plus, if there's a fire, you don't have to worry about carrying out 7 stacks of crap. Instead, you just have a USB drive that you can grab and run. So check it out. Legacybox.com/Ben. Okay, so on July 4th, it's time for all Americans to come together in scaling the Statue of Liberty and making fools of themselves. So the left has decided that everything is political up to and including Independence Day itself. July 4th is a time for political protest. We now know that a vast majority of Democrats are not extremely proud of their country. This led Brit Hume of Fox News to tweet out that Democrats don't love their country. I think that's a little much. I think Brit Hume deleted the tweet because it was a little much as well. But there's no question that the inherent patriotism of Democrats is very different from the inherent patriotism of Republicans. We discussed this a little bit earlier in the week. The idea that for Democrats, they're only proud of their country when their country is doing stuff that Democrats like. For Republicans, they are proud of their country because of the foundational principles upon which the country stands. And so the president can change, but those foundational principles never do. And that means that you're proud of your country whether Obama is president or whether Donald Trump is president. And indeed, that's what the Gallup polls show. They show that over 70% of Republicans were proud of America when Obama was president, and over 70% of Republicans are proud of America when Trump is president. When Obama was president, by contrast, 56% of Democrats were proud of America. That has now dropped all the way down to the low 30s. Like 32% of Democrats are proud of the United States. That means that it's time to virtue signal on July 4th. It's time to talk about why Donald Trump is ruining July 4th. He's ruining America. The most obvious example of this sort of tomfoolery happened yesterday when a woman tried to scale the Statue of Liberty. Now, this is just asinine. It's just bad tactics. The reason it's bad tactics is because they had to then evacuate all of Liberty Island. They actually had to evacuate the entire island because this dolt decided to go up there and protest against immigration and customs enforcement at the Statue of Liberty. There's certain irony to that, given the fact that the Statue of Liberty, right, and is inherently tied with immigration, and that everyone who was legally going through the system was doing so by following the Statue of Liberty and then going over to Ellis Island, where they would then be integrated into the American system legally. It was not that there was no ICE back in the day. There was ICE's equivalent, right? There were actual law enforcement mechanisms in place to vet people who are entering the country when they were entering the country, particularly in the early 20th century. In any case, this lady hates ICE, and so she gets up on the foot of the Statue of Liberty with a giant sign that says "Abolish ICE." So here's a little bit of tape of that. I will narrate it for you. So here's the lady. She's climbing around. She's sitting there. She's waving, carrying up a shirt that says that she wants to abolish ICE, and then eventually the cops get up there and they take her away. She's just a delight, crawling around up there for the media attention. Finally, here come the cops. They hook themselves up to ropes on their day off, and they go up there and they grab her and then they bring her down. So just brilliant stuff. It's very important that Liberty Island had to be evacuated. People's entire Independence Day had to be ruined because one idiot decided that she was going to climb up there with some of her friends. She spent nearly 2 hours on the base of the statue. At times, she sat under Lady Liberty's foot. She claimed she refused to come down at all until all the children have been released. Well, she failed because they have not been released, and she is still in jail right now. She also waved a T-shirt reading, "Trump makes us sick," and "Rise and resist." And then finally, after being nabbed by police, she relented and came down from her dangerous perch. The reason this is foolish is because anybody who's watching this thinks, I may agree with you, but why are you getting 3,000 people kicked off Liberty Island because you decided to pose? Why was that an important thing to do? Plus, the radicalism of Democrats who are now embracing the abolish ICE position is pretty insane. They're not actually suggesting a replacement. They're not suggesting that ICE should be reassessed and that it should be put again under the Department of Justice. Remember that immigration enforcement, Border Patrol, all this stuff was under the auspices of the Department of Justice, not under the Department of Homeland Security until after 9/11. Before that, it was under the DOJ. I have a good sense that Democrats would not be fond of the idea of taking ICE and putting it under the auspices of Jeff Sessions, right? The most anti-illegal immigration and maybe anti-legal immigration attorney general in modern history. I have a feeling that they don't want Jeff Sessions to determine border policy. But to be clear, this is a 70-30 issue. Most Americans do not want to abolish ICE. Most Americans want the borders enforced. President Trump knows that, and President Trump is saying so. He says, listen, we're not abandoning ICE, guys. I mean, this is not a thing that's happening.
I hear Democrats saying, we want to abandon ICE. We're not abandoning ICE, and we're not abandoning our law enforcement. Just the opposite.
Okay, and this is actually a popular issue for President Trump. It always was a popular issue for President Trump. The left is misconstruing things. Just because people don't like the policy of separating parents from children at the border does not mean that they don't want the border enforced at all. And it is so like the reactionary nature of the times that the left has decided this means that no border enforcement should be the replacement for border enforcement that they don't like. Also, the utter kind of asinine reactionary nature of some members of the left is coming out in spades now. Kamala Harris, who's the senator from my state of California and is a full-fledged dolt, she tweeted out a reminder this 4th of July. It was 8 immigrants who signed the Declaration of Independence. Happy Independence Day. Well, no, that's not right, actually. It was 56 British citizens who signed the Declaration of Independence. It was 48 people who were born in the United States. There are 56 people, not 8. It was 48 people from the United States who were born in, what existed prior to the United States, in the British colonies in America. 48 of the signatories of the Declaration of Independence were born here, and then 8 of them were born in Great Britain. I think it was 4 were born in England, and 2 were born in Wales, I believe, and 2 were born in Scotland. 1 was born in Wales. 1 was born in Northern Ireland. 2 were born in Ireland itself. So that's the 8 who were supposed immigrants who signed the Declaration of Independence. All of them were actually just British citizens because the American colonies were British territory. So none of that makes any sense. So Kamala Harris, giant fail once again. But all of this is just about trying to pretend that America was built by, quote unquote, immigrants or illegal immigrants. Like, listen, I'm a very pro-immigration person. America was built by British citizens. Okay, really, America was built by British citizens in the inception. And then over time, it was built by a lot of people, including many immigrants who came over across the centuries. So the answer is both. It was if you consider American colonists to be immigrants, I suppose that America was built by immigrants, but all of the founders were British citizens. So there's a bit of an odd argument to be making. Meanwhile, the ire against the right has driven some people absolutely out of their mind. One of those people, obviously, is Max Boot. So Max Boot wrote a piece yesterday in the pages of the Washington Post called, "I left the Republican Party, now I want Democrats to take over." Okay, this is echoing George Will, the syndicated columnist, who has said that Republicans should no longer hold office because Republicans are just too powerless in the face of President Trump's excesses. Well, Max Boot goes even further. He says the entire Republican Party is now similar to Japanese fascism or Nazism, because this is where we have to go. He tweeted that out yesterday. He said, like Japan after Japanese fascism or Germany after Nazism, the country has to be cleansed of sort of the stain of republicanism, which is a weird thing to say. So here is what Max Boot writes. And this is sad, because the reality is that Max Boot is a guy who's written some really good stuff in the past, right? I like Max Boot's work on war. He's written several very good books. I've recommended some on the program, actually. But there's a certain cadre of people who consider themselves conservative who really have been driven mad by President Trump. I'm somebody who didn't vote for President Trump, but that didn't change the fact that when President Trump does conservative things, I cheer. and he's the president of the United States. And he's governed a lot more conservatively than anyone could possibly have expected. He's governed more conservatively than pretty much anybody in my lifetime. So the idea that President Trump is now representative of an evil, brutal, terrible Republican Party, it doesn't make any sense to me. Max Boot, however, has been apparently just driven nuts by this. He says, should I stay or should I go now? That question posed by the eminent political philosophers known as The Clash is one that confronts any Republican with a glimmer of conscience. You used to belong to a conservative party with a white nationalist fringe. Now it's a white nationalist party with a conservative fringe. If you're part of that fringe, what should you do? First of all, that's insane. Why? In what world is the Republican Party a white nationalist party with a conservative fringe? How exactly are you coming up with that as an answer? I mean, I talked about during the election cycle how I hated the fact that President Trump had sort of winked and nodded at the alt-right. But now he's kicked out Steve Bannon. The alt-right are persona non grata inside the Trump administration. And the fact is that this is a conservatively governing party. Trump himself is actually a rather peripheral figure when it comes to the Republican Party itself. He's important in the sense that people have to negotiate with him, but to identify Donald Trump as the root and branch of the entire Republican Party is to ignore the fact that there are elected Republicans in majorities in the Senate, in the House, in a majority of state legislatures, in governor seats in a majority of states. I just don't understand this argument that this is now a white nationalist party. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's clearly not a white nationalist party. This is just factually false. It's a conservative party, and if you want to say that there's a white nationalist fringe, I would say that even that is a little bit exaggerated, but at least you can make the argument for that. Say it's a white nationalist party, it seems to me fully crazy. He says veteran strategist Steve Schmidt, who ran John McCain's 2008 presidential campaign, is the latest Republican to say no more. Recently, he issued an anguished Twitter post. 29 years and 9 months ago, I registered to vote and become a member of the Republican Party, which was founded in 1854 to oppose slavery and stand for the dignity of human life, he wrote. Today, I renounce my membership in the Republican Party. It is fully the party of Trump. And he talks about how George Will, Gordon Humphrey, Joe Scarborough, Peter Wehner, and other Republicans have left the party. And he says he has now re-registered as an independent. He says, I noted that Trumpkins want to transform the GOP into a European-style nationalist party that opposes cuts in entitlement programs, believes in deportation of undocumented immigrants, white identity politics, protectionism and isolationism, backed by hyper-macho threats to bomb the living daylights out of anyone who messes with us. I still hope then that traditional conservatives might eventually prevail, but I wrote, I can no longer support a party that doesn't know what it stands for and that in fact may stand for positions that I find repugnant. Now, many of the things Trump has said, I am not a fan of. When it comes to the transformation of the GOP into a European-style nationalist party, I've said the same thing, that this is a concern for me. But Trump has not governed that way. The Trump administration has not governed in that manner. They just haven't. The only evidence I'm seeing of a European-style, quote-unquote, nationalist party is with regard to Trump's tariff policy. But otherwise, Trump has not become an isolationist. Trump has not actually attempted to grow government radically in size and scope. The main policy agenda that he's driven, domestically speaking, has been regulation, cutting, and tax cuts. So I'm not sure where you get all of this. I'm going to explain a little bit more why Max Boot is off the rails in just a second. But first, I want to talk about your air filters. Now, I know it isn't the sexiest stuff to talk about your air filters. You don't sit around at night thinking, man, my air filters. But that's probably the reason why you're breathing in gunk every day. Your air filters are not just a necessary component of your life. They actually make your life a lot better. And by the way, a lot more energy efficient if you have the right air filters. Well, that is why you need to talk to my friends over at filterbuy.com. According to the Department of Energy, the most expensive utility for most Americans is their electricity bill. It makes up roughly 9% of their annual housing expenditure. And that number is aggravated depending on where you live. If you live in California, for example, you are getting clobbered on your energy bills because it's hot out all the time. And you got your air conditioner on all the time. And adding insult to injury, this allergy season has been pretty bad, further straining your system. This is why you need to go over to FilterBuy, America's leading provider of HVAC filters for homes and small businesses. They carry over 600 sizes. And if you are one of those difficult people, they can even make custom filters directly for you, and they ship free within 24 hours. They're manufactured right here in the United States, so there's no excuse. Set up auto delivery, and that makes things a lot easier because then you never have to think about filters again. They just show up when they are scheduled to show up, and you save 5%. Additionally, it extends the life of your system. You don't need a busted HVAC that could cost you thousands of bucks. So don't do that. Instead, go over to filterbuy.com, filterbuy.com, filterbuy.com. Tell them Ben sent you. We use it here at the Daily Wire offices. I use it at my home as well. Filterbuy.com. Go check it out. Okay, so Max Boot in the Washington Post, he says that Republicans ought to think about leaving the Republican Party, despite the fact that the Republican Party is currently more conservative than it has been any time in my lifetime in terms of its governance. It could be more conservative. Don't get me wrong. I'm not supremely happy with all aspects of how the Republicans have governed. They haven't taken on entitlement reform. My understanding is they're going to take on welfare reform, which is something that is deeply necessary. But to pretend that this is a party of quote-unquote white nationalism, of deep immorality, again, when Trump says stuff that's immoral, I'm happy to say that I think it's immoral. When I say I'm happy to say, I mean I'm willing to say that it's immoral. I think it is important to say that it is immoral when people do immoral things. But to pretend the entire party is immoral because of President Trump seems to me utterly asinine. To pretend everything Trump does is tainted by the touch of Trump is similarly asinine. Now, I guess the counter argument to this is that if you believe that Trump really is the death of the Republican Party, then everything good that he does contributes to his success, which contributes to the death of the Republican Party. I don't see it that way. I really don't think that that's accurate. I think that the good stuff that President Trump does is good stuff that President Trump does, but this is why it's necessary when President Trump commits heresies for us to sound out on that, for us to spout off and say, listen, that's wrong. Because if we don't, then it is true that Trump will have hijacked the Republican Party in every sense, but I don't think that we have to take the bad along with the good. I think that we can say this is really good, and a lot of stuff has been really good. Max Boot says, I am more convinced than ever I made the right decision. The transformation I feared has taken place. Just look at the reaction to President Trump's barbarous policy of taking children away from their parents as punishment for the misdemeanor offense of illegally entering the country. And that's not what happened. There was a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision that mandates that when you arrest somebody at the border, you have to remove their children from them. Okay, that is just the reality. But Max Boot suggests that he has thrown up his hands in despair at the debased state of the GOP. I don't want to be identified with the party of the child snatchers. And then he says that these people are political ostriches. He says, what I can't respect are head-in-the-sand conservatives who continue to support the GOP by pretending that nothing has changed. He says, like post-war Germany and Japan, the Republican Party must be destroyed before it can be rebuilt. If this is your perspective on the Republican Party, I think that you are missing the fact that the left in this country is incredibly radical, and you are missing the fact that the Republican Party has not, in fact, been completely taken over by every element that has to do with President Trump. But this sort of crisis mentality isn't just on the right, it is also extending to the left as well, and it's driving everybody mad. Trump's election has driven nearly everybody up a wall. So, on the left, the Democrats have decided to move as radical as humanly possible as well. How do I know? Well, let's take, for example, Michael Avenatti. Now, you may only know Michael Avenatti as the guy who represents porn star Stormy Daniels, who once had sex with Trump and now is claiming that Trump threatened her in some way. Right? Michael Avenatti is famous for being her lawyer. So he's the lawyer of a porn star. That's his entire credential. He now says he wants to run for president of the United States if Donald Trump runs for re-election. Michael Avenatti, who has set up a pup tent over at the CNN headquarters, he appears so often. He actually has set up a fax machine from the CNN green room just so he can do his minor legal work for Stormy Daniels between sending off press releases about immigrant children. He says he wants to run for president. Why? Because Trump is president.
I think I'd be qualified because I have three things that this president lacks, Jim. Brains, heart, and courage. And I think I have those in spades compared to this president.
Didn't you just say brains, smarts, and courage? Is that what you just said? Brains, smart. He has three things: brains, smarts, and courage. Brains and smarts are the same thing. Brains, heart? Okay, brains, heart, and courage. I see. Okay, so he's like, so now he's like the characters in The Wizard of Oz. He's got brains, he's got heart, and he's got courage. He's the Cowardly Lion, he's the Scarecrow, and he's the Tin Man. He literally just named the things that people lack, the characters lack in Wizard of Oz. Brains, heart, and courage. So he went to the wizard all the way in the wonderful city of Oz, and he received all of those things so he could fight the Wicked Witch of the West, Donald Trump. His entire base of credentials is that he represents a porn star. That's everything. That's the entire thing. That he's a lawyer who represents a porn star who stripped the president consensually and then is whining about it after signing a non-disclosure agreement that paid her $130,000, allegedly. So, yeah, this guy's going to run for president. The left may have lost its way a little bit here. Now, there's some folks who are suggesting that I'm giving the left short shrift, that I'm not giving the left enough credit, that really the left has new ideas. Right? It's not just that the left is about identity politics and reaction to Trump, although it seems that their base is. It's not just that the left is ensconced in this view of the United States as deeply nasty and bigoted, and that it's a coalition of the dispossessed, the racially and sexually dispossessed, who are going to come together to swamp the system and destroy the hierarchy. That's me just strawmanning them. That really the left is a party of ideas. That they've hit upon a new way of doing things, and as evidence of this, they have now presented this woman, Ocasio-Cortez, who's first Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I always forget her name because it's kind of long. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, this minor candidate who beat Joe Crowley in New York. This is sort of like if the Republicans had suggested that Dave Bratt, defeating Eric Cantor, Dave Bratt was now going to run for president of the United States. That's basically what the Democrats have done. They're so desperate for direction that they now say that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a 28-year-old former bartender with an econ degree, because apparently an econ degree comes along with the belief that everything is free, that she represents the future of the party. Tom Perez is the head of the DNC. He says that she does. She indeed represents the future of their party.
My daughters, they were both texting me about their excitement over Alexandria because she represents the future of our party. She ran a spirited campaign.
Now, I've been saying this for a long time, is that she represents the future of the party, that Bernie Sanders represents the future of the party. And people have been telling me, apparently on the left, people are upset about this because they say, well, I'm giving short shrift to Bernie Sanders' ideas. I'm not giving short shrift to Bernie Sanders' ideas. I'm giving no shrift to Bernie Sanders' ideas. They're stupid. They've resulted in the destruction of economies all around the world, the destruction of hundreds of millions of lives. The ideas that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is proposing with her brains and her heart and her courage are exactly the same policies that were proposed by Karl Marx 150, 200 years ago, 180 years ago. Okay, and those policies have resulted in the worst suffering in human history. So I'm not sure why I should be giving lengthened shrift just because a good-looking 28-year-old woman from the Bronx is now promulgating these ideas publicly. Well, why should they get any more shrift? In a second, I want to go through some of those ideas that are supposedly going to be earth-shattering, these ideas that are going to cure how everyone thinks in the United States and going to make America a better place. Because I've been told that she is the future of the Democratic Party. I've been told that she is the future of America, indeed. People very excited about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the same people who are excited about Bernie Sanders. I said before that the Democratic Party was split along three lines. There's the Hillary Clinton establishment, folks. There are the people who are the intersectional politicians. And then there was the Bernie Sanders wing. The intersectional politicians and the Bernie Sanders wing have been in a bit of a battle because the Bernie Sanders wing says socialism overcomes all, and the intersectional politics wing says socialism doesn't overcome racism. But it seems like the socialistic wing is winning. And I'm going to talk about some of their brilliant ideas in just a second because there's an article that directly addresses this. First, I want to talk about Skillshare. So, in today's economy, you are not going to be at the same job that you are at right now for the next 30 years. It's just not going to happen. You need to be constantly making your resume better. You need to be constantly making your resume stronger and bringing more skills to bear. This is why Skillshare exists. It's an online learning platform with over 20,000 classes in business, design, technology, and more. You can take classes in social media marketing, illustration, data science, mobile photography, creative writing. You name it, they've got it. And whether you're trying to deepen your professional skill set or start a side hustle or just explore that new passion, Skillshare is there to keep you learning and thriving. We here at the office have taken a bunch of these classes. I have taken classes in not only watercolors, as I've explained to you before, but I've also taken classes in social media marketing as well as data science, because I think it's more important to know how my business operates. They have classes taught by experts, and all of these are like 45-minute classes, and they are first-rate, much better than anything that you can find on any normal social media site. These are classes taught by experts with feedback. Go check it out. It's 2 months of Skillshare right now for just 99 cents. 2 months of unlimited access to over 20,000 classes for just 99 cents. Sign up. Go to Skillshare.com/Shapiro. That's Skillshare.com/Shapiro to start your 2 months right now. That's 99 cents for 2 months. Skillshare.com/Shapiro. You're going to love it. You're going to want to keep doing it. You're going to want to keep making your skill set broader and better. That's what Skillshare does. Skillshare.com/Shapiro. Use that /Shapiro for the special offer and to let them know that we sent you. Okay, so there's an article in a place that I'd never heard of, the American Interest, which I guess is a left-wing news magazine, I guess, online. It's an article by a guy named Ben Judah, and it says, "The Right's Straw Left." And here's what it says. "One of the most exhausting tropes in American conservatism is that the left has no ideas. I've lost count of the amount of times I've been informed that all they have to offer is identity politics. It is all the more exhausting because it is simply not true. Rather than look, conservative thinkfluencers have built themselves a straw leftist, an irate, dogmatic, anti-Semitic campus activist with a gender-fluid agenda railing against the patriarchy and campaigning against white privilege. But the right straw left has become something of a comfort blanket, easy to beat up in op-eds and own in stand-up politics acts." Okay, so first of all, that is how it is on campus. This irate, dogmatic, anti-Semitic campus activist with the gender-fluid agenda, that's basically what's happening on campus. And it is still a strong wing of the Democratic Party. But I think that Ben Judah is right to point out that there is the socialist wing of the Democratic Party that has taken prominence when it comes to electoral politics. Here's what he says. "The shock win of 28-year-old socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez should be a wake-up call because whilst the right was feeling smart watching the Ben Shapiro show, because you are, the left, the real left that is, not the confused Democratic establishment, has been living through the most dramatic policy renaissance in decades. Hint, it has nothing to do with bathrooms. Not only is a populist policy platform coming together, but the left has increasingly found the persuasive policy wonks and the campaigners like the Democratic Socialists of America to exert real influence among the ranks of the Democrats." I love this. It's a dramatic policy renaissance. Where are they getting their ideas? From FDR. Legitimately, like this is their policy renaissance. Their policy renaissance is they're going to go back to FDR's policies during the Great Depression, which lengthened the Great Depression by somewhere around 8 years, according to economists at UCLA. This is the policy renaissance they're talking about. We're going to reinstate policies and expand policies that have bankrupted half of Western Europe. So here are some of these ideas. Whoever ends up running, says Ben Judah, a federal jobs guarantee is the big idea already set to dominate the Democratic primaries in 2020. This simple idea would see the government guarantee a job to 13.1 million Americans who are currently unemployed or underemployed. The go-to report on the topic from the Center on Budget Policy Priorities suggests a guaranteed wage which would go with each one of these jobs to the tune of $32,500. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about this. So, after reading Ben Judah's stunning piece on the brilliant ideas that I am ignoring, apparently, I actually went and I read the entire Center on Budget and Policy Priorities piece on why we need a federal job guarantee. The piece is by Mark Paul, William Darity Jr., and Derek Hamilton. And here is what the piece says. The piece says that we need full employment brought to you by the permanent establishment of a National Investment Employment Corps. The NIEC will provide universal job coverage for all adult Americans. The permanent establishment of the NIEC would eliminate involuntary unemployment. The elimination of poverty wages through the pay structure of the NIEC. First of all, what jobs would they be doing? They'd be doing all infrastructure jobs. So does this sound like a new idea to you? Infrastructure jobs paid for by the government? It seems to me that every single politician ever has proposed this, including Donald Trump. Every one of them. Bernie Sanders proposed it. Barack Obama proposed it. This is what the stimulus package was supposed to do. It was a giant fail. FDR did this as well. Virtually every president talks about the need for infrastructure. Let's just hire 1 million people and go build some roads. It turns out those are temporary jobs, and then unless you have a plan to keep those people permanently on the government payroll, those people are going to end up doing make-work projects. It's going to be a tax suck from people who work to people who are doing jobs that are more useless. It is mudslinging jobs. It is digging a hole and filling that hole back in. That's what all these jobs end up being, or at least a lot of them. Okay, so here's what the report continues. It would eliminate poverty wages through the pay structure of the NIEC. The federal job guarantee would provide a job at a minimum annual wage of $24,600 for full-time workers, poverty line for a family of 4, and a minimum hourly wage of $11.83. Well, isn't that weird? I thought Democrats were calling for a $15 minimum wage. I guess now it's only just $11.83 when it's the federal government doing it. So the federal government will pay you $12 an hour, but the private sector will have to pay you $15 an hour. Is it just me, or does that make the private sector somewhat less competitive? Maybe there's another agenda here. They say workers would have the opportunity to advance within the program, rising from minimum wage in the program to an estimated mean salary of $32,500. The wage would be indexed to the inflation rate to ensure that the purchasing power of enrollees is maintained, and the wage will vary to allow for some degree of regional variation. The minimum wage rate in the program will also rise to meet the national minimum wage if it were to exceed the wage rate recommended here. So that rate of wage would continue to rise, paid for by the government as inflation increases. Well, there are a couple of problems with this. Okay, one of the problems is that taking money and injecting it into the system via government spending immediately creates a certain level of price inflation, which means you're going to have to increase the minimum wage as well that you're paying the members of the government, right? These new government workers. If you increase prices and everything is indexed to price inflation, not to actual monetary inflation, to price inflation, then this wage will continue to rise and rise and rise, pushing up pushing up price inflation, and then pushing up the wage that has to be paid for by the federal government. This would also include fringe benefits. To provide a true non-poverty wage and meet the fundamental rights of American citizens, the policy would include health insurance for all full-time workers in the program. So it's not $32,500 a year, it's $43,000 a year that the federal government is going to pay all of these people for make-work programs. And then most of the report is a long rant about how great FDR was, even though FDR was basically garbage when it came to the economy. My favorite part of this is when they say this. They need a true floor in the labor market. While minimum and living wage laws have historically been implemented to place a floor in the labor market, they fail to provide viable pathways to employment or out of poverty for those looking for work but unable to obtain employment in the first place. The job guarantee would function as a de facto floor in the labor market, greatly increasing the bargaining position of workers throughout the economy. What they're saying is that if you can get $12 an hour from the federal government, you're not going to work for $7 an hour or $8 an hour over at the local McDonald's, which is true. That also means that it's going to be an increased cost to businesses, private businesses. Those private businesses are then going to have to increase their prices to consumers, which is going to create exactly the price inflation that leads to that spiral I was talking about before. Beyond that, it is also going to lead to increased costs that is going to lead to layoff of workers. Where will those workers go, you ask? Oh, they'll go work for the federal employment program. Look how magical this is, right? You're going to create a higher necessity for wages in the private sector by creating an artificial floor for wages. And then when people are laid off, they will then work for the federal government. And then when the federal government continues to increase its wages to deal with the price inflation that's happening thanks to its own regulations, then more workers will be laid off. Yeah, I can't see how this is going to go wrong in any way. This will be great. So they say, well, let's use this as a substitute for all these welfare programs. They say that this will get rid of a lot of the welfare programs because then people won't have to be on welfare. This is sort of like UBI as proposed by Milton Friedman. I'm going to explain in a second why I have some problems with this, why this is still a problem, and why the program they are maintaining is not exactly the same as UBI, Milton Friedman's Universal Basic Income. First, I want to talk a little bit about Puppy Spot. So, you want a dog, okay? It's time for you to get a dog. I have not gotten a dog. I've been encouraged by many people to get a dog. I have 2 kids, so I'm a little bit busy, but when my daughter gets older, I am sure that she is going to want a dog. I mean, she loves dogs. My sister has a dog, and every time the dog comes over, my daughter is on the floor playing with dogs. I think this is in my future. Well, the best place to find the perfect puppy is over at puppyspot.com. It's a trusted service connecting the nation's top breeders to caring, responsible individuals and families. A puppy joining a home shouldn't feel too big to handle, and that's why Puppy Spot makes it easy. It's more than a service. They're advocates. Their 200-plus dog-loving team members ensure that only the highest level of licensed breeders enter their exclusive breeder community. And you can view thousands of puppies from golden retrievers to Yorkies to Labradoodles, and their puppy concierge service will help find the right breed for you. And then once you find the pup that you like, then you can relax because Puppy Spot handles the rest. Their industry-leading health guarantees mean that your puppy's vaccinations are up to date. They receive a full nose-to-tail health exam from a licensed vet before they are brought safely home to you. For a limited time, all Ben Shapiro listeners receive access to the Puppy Spot VIP program, which discounts on everything you need for your new puppy, from food to walking services. Go to puppyspot.com/Ben. That's puppyspot.com/Ben for the special offer. Again, all of my listeners receive access to the Puppy Spot VIP program. Go check it out right now. Puppyspot.com/Ben. It's too cute to handle. Puppyspot.com/Ben for this special offer. Go check it out right now. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about the brand new magical ideas I apparently have been ignoring among leftists. But first, you're going to have to go over to dailywire.com. So over at dailywire.com for $9.99 a month, you will get the rest of this show. When you get the rest of the show, you also get to be part of the mailbag, which we'll be doing tomorrow. Ask all of your questions and get all of your answers. Plus, you can also go and check out the Michael Knowles Show. You can also go check out the Andrew Klavan Show. All of those are available in full. Plus, the annual subscription gets you this, the very great Leftist Tears hot or cold tumbler, refilling daily over here at the Ben Shapiro Show. So go check that out as well. Also, when you subscribe at YouTube or iTunes, then you can check out our Sunday special, which will arrive automatically for you. It is awesome. And our latest Sunday special features the great Sam Harris.
I'm Sam Harris, and I'll be speaking to Ben this weekend on the Ben Shapiro Sunday special. Please tune in.
And we talk about pretty much everything on that Sunday special. It is pretty awesome. So go check that out by subscribing at YouTube or iTunes. We are the largest, most conservative, fastest growing podcast in the nation.